So, it's been a couple of days, and I've thought about what happened with the Commanders against the Falcons. And then I walked into a guest room in my house, and I saw puke from my dog all over the place, Anthony. And I remembered that reminds me of that first quarter against the Falcons.
I didn't expect to hear a dog puking reference to start this thing out, but it kind of works in this scenario. I'm glad you got that cleaned up, and hopefully the Commanders get this stuff cleaned up because they have the Chargers this week, and they're going to be pissed off.
I got to keep you on your toes, my friend. Keep you on your toes.
Hail to the Commanders. It's the Commanders Squad. Everything Washington Commanders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of the nation's capital. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Rally the burgundy and gold. The Commanders Squad Show starts now.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie to you. It was a giant thing of puke. So I have to clean that up afterwards here because my wife said, I just got my nails done. And I went, oh, great. So that means I'm definitely cleaning this thing up. So I think of the first quarter where the Commanders got outgained 118 to -6 yards before that Chris Rodriguez run. And then I thought about it when I saw that. Anyway, that's how my mind works. This episode, this is how you transition. Brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you can get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Their app is not puke. It's actually fantastic. It's my favorite one. So that's the direction that you want to go with that. We've had a couple of days. Sit back, relax, think about this thing a little bit. David Harrison was supposed to be on with us, but now he's stuck with something even worse. He's stuck in traffic just trying to get out to Ashburn right now. So he may pop on with us. He may not. It was one of those. Everything's good. Oh, just kidding. So you and I will at least kind of look back a little bit, but more importantly, looking forward to what we take from that Falcons game and move forward with the Chargers coming up this weekend. As stuff has settled for me, we're going to look into what they need to do to obviously beat the Chargers, whether or not Jayden Daniels is going to be back out there, what changes, if any, they can make defensively with this team. But, big picture for me, I think the boiling water is kind of settled down, Anthony, where I look at the way that game went. And I certainly have a short memory of a goldfish here where let's move on. If you start to get some of these big names that you need back, specifically a Jaden Daniels, which as of now, it looks like he should be good to go. I think you can wipe that game behind it. We may look back and go, oh, that was when Atlanta started to become a better team. And you don't feel as bad about that loss when it's all done.
You may not feel bad about it, but you also, you've got enough stuff on tape to where you don't want to repeat what you've seen, right? 4 weeks in, it's like, okay, hey, we've seen it. We've talked about it. We've tried to correct it. And obviously we haven't. So after the first quarter of the season, I'm not saying that you need to throw out the life jackets and freak out. This isn't a lost season. It's not a lost cause. There's still plenty of chances to win some games and get things on the right track. But yeah, the 24-hour rule is always in full effect. You got 24 hours to sulk or 24 hours to celebrate and really analyze what happened. Before coming on here, I read a quote by Marshawn Lattimore. You don't hear him talking a whole lot in the media. And his quote was saying, look, we're good enough in the back end to fix what we've done and the mistakes that we've made. So I love hearing that confidence from him. I love hearing him speak and say, yo, we're going to get this thing cleaned up. So with that type of confidence and the players that you have in the building, the leadership that you have, it leads me to believe that things can go in the right direction. So you can't lay on that old result in Atlanta. You can't let that be how you're just going to grade the rest of your season. It was one game. It wasn't a great occurrence, but you also didn't have everybody out there. So now get people healthy, get them back on the field and put a much better performance coming up against a team that's frankly better than Atlanta. I would think they're better than Atlanta. They're scarier than Atlanta, and Atlanta put it to you on defense. So interested to see what's going to happen in this matchup, Nick.
You've been in locker rooms that have been winners, locker rooms that have been losers. What would be, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but I always like to kind of lean on like your experience and certainly what you've seen from your playing days. Like, what is sort of you talk about the 24-hour rule. Do guys, like if a guy is dwelling on a performance they had, Marshawn Lattimore, you and I know this, right? You look in the comments, man, he's getting eviscerated by people left and right. Some rightfully so, some of it, they're the expectations, they trade for him, all these things. when that stuff kind of lingers, if it is, and I'm not saying that it is, but if it lingers from that game and guys are starting to think about how they played, what went wrong, these types of things moving forward, is it just a matter of other people picking them up? Is it something that like what? And I know I'm asking you to speculate here, but I'm always curious to kind of know like what those situations are like if it starts to drag on into like the next week of practice.
Honestly, you're looking at your teammates to help pick you up. You're not going to let your teammate just sit there and dwell and be in the muck of just bad ball. I've been in that spot where I've dwelled on a drop pass, and it can affect you, the rest of the game, the rest of the week, and frankly, could affect your employment. And you don't have that opportunity in this game. You don't have that opportunity in this league. And you mentioned the memory of a goldfish. You kind of got to have that as a defender, and you kind of have to have that in the league. But the beautiful part is that you got to look at your highlights. You got to look at the things that you've done really well, and it helps you remind yourself, like, I can ball. I can operate in this league. I can have success in this league. Let me not, worry about a penalty that happened. The penalty happened in the past. Yes, we can clean those things up and go forward. But ultimately, this brotherhood that they have, the teammates that you're around, they can see if a player's kind of down in the dumps. And so somebody will go over there and say, hey, man, pick your head up. We need you this week. We need you against Keenan Allen. We need you against Quentin Johnston. We need you against this talented defense and this talented Chargers offense. So don't be down in the dumps. It's just a game. It's just 1 week. We got another one to come up on Sunday.
Now, we don't have David, but we'll try to get something from him if we can while he's sitting in traffic, because obviously the big questions are whether or not Jayden Daniels is going to be available, Terry McLaurin. It sounds like, by all accounts, Jayden Daniels should be back. Terry McLaurin is the one that's certainly much more up in the air. The one thing I'll say, like, I sort of lean on the side of this team being extra cautious and assume they're going to even give a guy an extra week if it means them being prepared for later in the season. If I was a betting man, and Anthony, I am a betting man at times, I would bet that Jayden Daniels is in and Terry McLaurin is out in this game, which means you obviously get the boost of your franchise quarterback, and you hope that this offense starts to look like it's hitting more of a stride with Jayden Daniels as opposed to really what we saw with the inconsistencies the first 2 weeks of the season. But even if Terry McLaurin's out, that now means you've added at least an extra dynamic of Jaden's legs, which Mariota can run, but it's not like Jayden Daniels. You're getting just that emotional boost. I think that will also be really important for this team, too, to have your leader back out there under center.
When you do get your guy back, it calms a lot of nerves. You know what I mean? Whenever I remember last year seeing BSJ talk about it. He's like, man, hey, we've got Jayden Daniels. We've got 5. If you have 5, you got a chance, And so if I can get in the game, well, they say 5 or 10 will get you in. That's it. 5 will get you in. And that is one thing that lifts the spirits. But you can't rest on your laurels, because not having Terry McLaurin is a big deal. But you've also operated without Terry McLaurin in training camp, and then obviously last week. But getting Jayden back is the biggest push and the biggest boost in the morale. And frankly, I hope that he's able to improve some of the play that he put on tape earlier in the year. I watched it, and that first game, it bugs me so much because he was late on a lot of throws. And I'm not sure if it was the processing speed or just what it was, but he was late on those throws. And if he is on time with some throws this week and moving forward, this offense is going to look like we expect it to look. If you look at the tape and he throws it to receivers that are open rather than quickly going to a check down or somebody, at a shorter route like Ertz or something along those lines, this offense is going to open up some more. So that time away, if used properly, it can be beneficial. It can be beneficial. And going to talk on Terry, his time away is going to be ultimately beneficial. Saw a great point on X. Somebody was saying they should put Terry on IR. You could consider putting him on like a short-term IR, the 4-week version. That way it's short. You can almost guarantee that he'll be fully healed, because the issue is I don't want him to come back and then it happened again. And then what ends up being, should have been 3 weeks, ends up now being 6 weeks, ends up being a season. And then everybody's like, see, we shouldn't have paid him the money. And I don't want to go down that road. I think patience is best, rest is best, especially with the muscles, hip flexors. He's a runner. He's a long strider guy. He needs to have his quad. He needs to have his hip flexor in tip-top shape in order to maximize what he's going to bring to the team. So Terry taking the time off, not a problem. I don't got no issue with that. Jayden getting back in the fold, I think that's necessary, especially going on the road against the Chargers.
You know, it's funny when you started talking about, McLaurin getting hurt again and people starting to say we shouldn't have. That's the first thing I thought of was the narrative about like, shouldn't have paid him. This is what's going to look. There are injuries you just can't control. This is an injury that just happened. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a doctor, but I know enough, I've seen enough to know that like sometimes these things just happen. But I will say this. It's probably the worst start that you could have possibly had for this offense, for Terry McLaurin, from a narrative perspective, from an image perspective. Whether or not people in that building are paying attention to what's being said outside of it, the reality is to think about what went on with Terry McLaurin, with the contract not being there, and then the questions about him being ramped up and ready to go for the season and healthy, and then the offense to look sloppy at the beginning, and then for Jayden Daniels on top of Terry McLaurin to miss time. It just felt like this team as a whole right now, from the offensive side of the ball, has really just felt like they've been playing behind this entire season for me. Like, not just what happened in the first quarter, but like beyond that, or like what happened against the Falcons was kind of like an example of how this offense has just felt for this entire season. So Jayden Daniels having some of that time, I think some of that time to observe and watch film and obviously just get healthy on top of that. But the one thing that I do worry is like, does this set him back and the offense back still, even when he's on the field and healthy again, just with the fact that he hasn't been out there practicing in these games the last couple of weeks too?
I mean, shoot, you got to get him up to speed at some point. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's going to set him back much. He hadn't had a lot of work with Terry anyways. So, he may be comfortable throwing it to Chris Moore and some of the other guys that are out there. So I don't think it's a setback for him. And I do agree that it has been a pretty rocky start. And to be 2-2 coming out of the first quarter amongst everything and all the bad, and there's been some bright spots, of course, but all the injuries and the inconsistencies in the defense and losing folks on the defensive line, and just what they got now is still not the roster that we expected to have to start the season, right? They still barely scratching that surface, and frankly, we're not going to get it. All right, some of those guys are out. That's fine. Hey, we got to move forward. And that's just where our mindset is. When I'm talking about these teams, when I'm talking about Washington, I'm talking as a guy, if I were in the locker room, that's where my mindset comes from, to where I'm not the one who's going to just dog and just drag everybody down. Hell, I've been in those locker rooms. I've been on the side of those tweets where people have been talking crap about me. So I get it. Right? I get it. The fact of the matter is, you got one game ahead of you, and you can't look into October 19th against Dallas in Dallas. You can't worry about that game yet. You got to focus on the Chargers, one of the top defenses in the league, one of the top quarterbacks in the league, explosive ass offense in the league. There ain't no time to be set back. You know what I'm saying, Nick? There's no time to be set back. Like, you got to, It's been 4 weeks. We got to get going. And if you're not going to get rolling, then it's going to be a bumpy season. But I still feel like this team is going to be reaching for 9-10 wins and trying to get into the playoffs.
So I do have some good news. This just came to my phone right in the middle of what you were saying. The Commanders have opened the 21-day practice window for Sam Cosmi. So that's great. That's certainly much needed. That's a name that they need back, obviously getting injured in the playoffs last year and missing this time. We talk about the kind of revolving door on the offensive line and with the offense as a whole. To get Sam Cosmi back, now he's not going to obviously be back against the Chargers. It's going to take a few weeks to ramp him back up. We know that that's going to take time, but to at least get him involved, we know what the guard position has looked like, right? They changed things up against the Raiders, worked well, wasn't the same necessarily against the Falcons, but the defense was the bigger issue against Atlanta. But to get Sam Cosmi back there, add that depth, get a starting guard back out there, starting to work his way back, you at least now have that ability to say, okay, even if this season is one of those they're hovering around 500 for the first 6 weeks of the year, you then start to get a Terry McLaurin back and healthy. Hopefully Jaden's back this week and continues to stay healthy. Sam Cosmi comes back, and then maybe some things defensively start to click and guys get in, whether it's better playing shape or more comfortable in this situation system, whatever the case is, to where 4 weeks into a season, we're not done. Like, it's not like things are over at 2-2, but the reality is you do have to look, and we talked about this a little bit after the game on Sunday, right? There's a level of adapting and a level of pivoting that you're going to have to be, right? You got to be a little more fluid. You can't be Ron Rivera and say, this is what we're doing and it's staying and nothing's changing. You have to adapt, and you have to have the mindset of, okay, we're going to change some things up if we can. Adding Sam Cosmi now, at least to the, to the roster in the next few weeks with this 21-day window now officially opening today with the Commanders. That's a big, big deal for this team, and I think that's going to be a big boost for them, even just mentally at first.
Oh, mentally, it's enormous. I think having him next to Josh Connerly is going to be even that much more beneficial. I think his mindset, the way that he likes to approach the game and blocking and being physical, he's going to probably be the one to go to the sideline and say, "Hey, run the freaking football. Run behind me. I'm dominating, dude." Sam Cosmi has a type of dog in him that I like, and that's what I want to have back on that line. Not saying the other guy didn't have it, but when you get your starter back, you know what it means. You know it's going to bring some continuity back to that offensive line. I would love to see it clean some things up. I'd love to see Chris Rodriguez get some more carries behind Sam Cosmi.
Yes.
You mentioned Ron Rivera. I got this mail thing in the mail, and it's not for me. It was for a previous owner, but it's like a Catholic magazine. On the back, the pastor looked like Ron Rivera, man. I was looking at it like, is that Ron? He got into a new career. I didn't know, but they might have been cousins. So shout out to Coach Rivera, man. You made your way. You're on the island in my kitchen right now.
You know what you got to do? You got to tweet that picture out. I need to see, or at least send it to me. I want to see it. And we could, because now I'm curious. Because when you say he looks like Ron Rivera, I'm like, okay, how much? We could do like a side-by-side comparison and see if it looks like it. What is Ron Rivera doing now? I know he was on ESPN and NFL Network for a while. Is he still doing that? Do you have any idea?
I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. He's probably enjoying, not having to get out there and make too many plays. But I know he's going to be staying close to the game. Like you can't get too far away from ball. I mean, if you do, you start to itch and you get a little rash. So then you got to get a little football back in you. So I bet Coach is sitting back. He's watching some tape and, probably coming up with, oh man, I would do this in this situation. And that's how we all do it, right? He's doing the same things we do, but he gets to be a little bit more, he got to be a little bit more straight in there. He don't got to be so daggum critical about people, I guess.
All right. Well, you mentioned Ron Rivera and them being stubborn. There's one thing the Commanders are definitely going to need to do if they want to come out with a win against the Chargers this Sunday. What that is, plus who can step up and get a bigger role and be a bigger part of this offense moving forward with all the open doors that the Commanders have. It's Commander Squad. And of course, the NFL season is here. You know that. We're 4 weeks in. We're heading to week 5 already. I hate to be the cliche, but it's already week 5 in the NFL. Right now, new customers at FanDuel can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. So you pick a bet, you put down $5. $5, that's it. That's nothing. It's, at this point, practically the cost of a basic cup of coffee, right? And if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets. $300. You use it all across the app. I did just look. Commanders went from 3 to 2.5-point dogs on the road. So maybe a little bit of money starting to come in on the Commanders when they're sitting there at 2.5, getting under that key number of 3. It's a really good spot for them. Listen, it makes watching football a little bit more fun. Just a little sprinkle, right? A salt-based sprinkle, a dabble if you're a casual fan. Maybe you love diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience just that much better, that much more fun. All you got to do, it's simple. Go to FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today, and that's exactly how you get started. So, Anthony, you said something that was music to my ears, and it's Chris Rodriguez. Man, you know how much I love Chris Rodriguez. I think there's so much potential there. I think the big thing with his upside is that he's improved as a guy that can create some big explosive plays, get that chunk yardage that wasn't necessarily happening in the past. I keep referencing the first quarter against Atlanta for a reason, because it was 118 to -6 when you're talking about total yards until that Chris Rodriguez 48-yard run. In the past, we would not have been talking about Chris Rodriguez 48-yard runs. He talked in this offseason a lot about his ability to become more explosive and working on his timing and his footwork and his speed. And, that big 20 miles an hour mark, a guy can hit that when they're running. He wasn't doing that before, and he is now. That's a testament to his hard work, to his improvement. And I continue to see flashes from him. And I hope that we continue to see more and more of an opportunity. I know it's not going to be him. I know he's not going to get 30 carries in a game, but this isn't the type of offense where that's necessary. You don't have Bijan Robinson, and even then, Bijan's going out as a receiver. So, I just feel like this is an opportunity now to add that extra layer and continue to build on what Chris Rodriguez has improved and really give him some more of those opportunities where in any moment he could break off another 40-something yard run.
Chris Rodriguez has deserved the right to at least get 10, 12 carries a game, in my opinion. The fact that he had that long 46-yard run and then only ended with 7 carries, like you only have 59 total. So I'm like, you got to give him the rock a few more times because he seems to be a guy that works well off of having a little bit more volume. Now, I know that you want to work Bill in, and he's shown some really good promise and some really good runs. And then they knock him on pass pro, but frankly, he does a lot better at pass pro than I think people give him credit for. Like you get blown up one time and then ends up being a sack, and now all of a sudden like, oh my God, he can't block. I can go cut on 3-4 different clips where he's made hellified blocks that have led to big throws, especially one against the Raiders on Jamal Adams with Marcus Mariota making a throw. So all of that to be said, I do think Chris Rodriguez needs to get some more carries. I think that if you get out of your own way as a play caller and you commit to that run, even though you know you want to throw the rock around because that's deep down in your DNA, it's going to help you out further on in the game. It's going to help you build, especially when you have Sam Cosmi back. Eventually, when he comes back, like run the rock. You got to help him play behind his pads. Help your young old linemen play behind their pads. Running the ball helps things make it so much easier for any quarterback. I don't care if it's Marcus Mariota or if it's Jayden Daniels. If you're able to establish that line of scrimmage and just determine where it's going to go. Look at how Philly has success. They're able to determine what's going on at that line of scrimmage, tush push and all. If Washington can do that, I think Rodriguez is a guy to help really bolster that offense. Let Bill, my bad, Jacory. Bill, we're going to let Jacory Krosky Merritt, Bill Merritt. He's going to get in there and he can be the lightning to the thunder. You get what I'm saying? That's what I'm looking for. Let Rodriguez really pound out the defense and get them, softened up. And then here comes Bill. He's going to house one, but Chris is going to house one too. He's going to take one 30, 40 yards as well. So it's a good 1-2 punch in my opinion, man. It's a 1-2 punch that they got to utilize a lot more.
I think being able to have a little variety out of the backfield and change things up and guys that can do different things is like, it's massively important, right? I think that this is what Cliff Kingsbury's wanted with this offense. And you've got that opportunity to do it because in some ways, right there, Austin Eckler provided something that you knew you were going to get. You knew you were going to get the consistency. You knew the type of player that he was. Now there's obviously tons of negatives with no Austin Eckler the rest of the season. But you at least are kind of forced into, like, they're being forced into changing things up a little more in the backfield, relying on some of these younger names, relying on some of these guys. Like, listen, all the hype around Bob Bill, now we call him Bob too. Why not? You know what? If he has a poor game, we're going to call him Bob. If he has a great game, he's Bill. I think that's how we'll decide what his nickname's going to be. But, like, you have these guys that have a lot of upside, but they're young and inexperienced. So you kind of force your hand now to give Krosky Merritt an opportunity, to give Chris Rodriguez an opportunity. Now, we know what Jeremy McNichols is. That's a veteran. That's a guy that's been on a lot of teams. So that's not really going to change things up. The key for me, though, it's just going to be so important for them to get off to a strong start, a fast start, where it doesn't feel one-sided, where the time of possession is 3 times as much for the Chargers than it is for Washington. And they're behind, and I'm going to keep referencing it, but you're behind 118 to -6 in total yards and these types of things where I'd love to see Washington get out there early, control the clock, and have some long drives. Run the football and give some opportunities, not just to Chris Rodriguez, but to Krosky Merritt. Maybe Jeremy McNichols is out there, but eat some clock and keep Justin Herbert off the field. Because if this is a game where the Chargers are up early 10-0, it's not just Justin Herbert. Omari Hampton has started to really figure things out, right? There's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement around him coming into this. We just saw what he did this past weekend. He's starting to figure it out at the next level. He's starting to get comfortable in this offense. And the one thing we know is that Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, they'll run the football if they have the opportunity, but now Harbaugh's gotten more comfortable, which I don't know why this didn't happen last year when you've got Justin Herbert as your quarterback, but now he's starting to utilize that passing game a little bit more on top of that, which just makes this Chargers team so dangerous in both, running the ball, throwing the football. The offense can do so many things. I want Washington to keep that offense off of the field as much as they possibly can. So eating up clock, long time of possession early in that first quarter alone, I think will really set the tone and put them in a much better place where it doesn't feel like they're scrapping and clawing and having to go away from their game plan just to throw themselves back in the game.
You ain't lying, man. I love this idea, the fact of playing defense with your offense. those long sustained drives that they used to have last year. We'd love to get a couple of those. You don't want Khalil Mack and the rest of that. Derwin James, one of the most disruptive players on defense in the league. He's going to be all over the field. He's been blitzing. He's been a part of a twist and blitzes before, so he's going to get involved in it. Offensively, they got to be sound on their protection. Sound on your protection, especially if you are going to be bringing Jayden back. Know where people are. Know where Jayden is. Not Jayden. Jayden's in the backfield. Know where Derwin James is. Know where these people are so you can actually protect it. All right. Be sound on that communication. You can't get behind the sticks. Can't get behind the sticks. You can't have 1st and 10 go into 2nd and 8. That's not good enough. I needed to be 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5. Something that's going to give you more variety in your play calling. Right. Give you more variety in your play calling and know that. Look, we want to get 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives together to slow that other offense down. You make the Chargers on the offensive side get to be one-dimensional. And if you can do that, it helps our defense, the Commanders' defense, be able to cover some folks, right? If they have to deal with the Marion Hampton running a rock, getting downhill, breaking long runs, and then have to go deal with the receiving core, that's too tough. We've shown that the squad doesn't have the go-to home run guy who just finna go home and he's going to get a sack anytime. That's not how it works right now. They got to find a way to generate the pressure. We'll talk about the defense in a little bit, but offensively, you got to create points and you got to put yourself in positions to stay on the field. Easy conversions, right? Even if it's a boring little 3rd and 1, just throw it in the flat, get the first down, and let's carry on. And I will say too, Jayden has to understand they will have a plan for his legs. And it may involve Derwin James. You ain't gonna run it. You ain't gonna outrun him. All right. You ain't gonna outrun him. You ain't gonna outrun him. So please find a way to go with the ball, navigate the pocket a little bit better. That way you can throw the ball downfield because throws will be open. They will be there. You just got to have a little patience and you got to let the offense work.
I just got a text from I guess you got it too in our group text. David just got to the parking lot now with that traffic. I always feel for people that have like a plan because we've all been there. And then traffic just is at a dead stop. I bet he was absolutely losing his mind. I told him, I said, just come on from that. But you don't know how Wi-Fi is going to be or whatever the case is. So we'll try to get some updates from him as he's out there at Ashburn now to try to, get an understanding of Jayden Daniels, who we hope is going to play this weekend. Terry McLaurin, certainly much more up in the air. John Bates, some of these other names that are questionable for this weekend. I had somebody ask me this the other day, and I want to ask you the same thing because my answer was no right off the bat, I'll tell you. Could the way that it was basically framed to me, and I'll paraphrase it, but because of some of the injuries offensively and the things that have gone on that you and I have talked about, is there anything more that could be expected from Deebo Samuel? And I said, no. I think the Deebo Samuel revenge tour, and yeah, sure, we could say 100 yards receiving every game and 3 but realistic actual expectations given this offense, given who he is. He's the team's leading receiver. He's got a couple of touchdowns to start. I mean, he's running the ball. He's receiving. He's got these big kick returns that have really helped get them shorter fields early in games, which that's another thing. That would really help them if they could get a couple of opportunities in the first half where they got a short field, but you still want to see them eat some clock and keep Justin Herbert off. But honestly, I thought about it. I was like, I don't really think the expectations were I don't think there's. And if anything, I'd say Deebo is coming close to maybe exceeding some expectations given how low they were for just essentially trading a 5th-round pick to bring him over. Deebo Samuel has done so much for this offense and for special teams for them right now, really filling in for all of these guys offensively that have been out.
The only way Deebo Samuel can have more of an impact is if he goes over and covers some running backs out of the backfield. That's it. I don't know what else you would want this guy to do. He's been a leader, listening to the mic'd up. He's been a leader, very vocal. You mentioned the statistics. He's productive on the field. Everybody, I don't say we. A lot of folks were thinking he was going to show up fat and out of shape. And he has done the exact opposite. He's been fast, explosive, and what I love the most is that he's fighting until the last minute of the game, right? He catches a 2-yard pass against Green Bay, and he's making 3 or 4 people miss to get 7 yards. But everybody, and I say everybody else kind of standing around watching, but you can see the distinct difference between how he's approaching it and then how other folks are approaching it. All right. I was looking at Max Crosby on one of the plays that when he hit Bill on that screen, Max Crosby rushed the quarterback, and I'm crazy to talk about Max, but he rushed the quarterback, beat Connerly, then circled back and hustled his tail off to then hit Groski Merritt in that same play. That's the type of effort that you got to bring. That's the type of energy that you got to bring across the board. Offensive line, D-line, fly the hell around. You ain't got nothing else to lose. You might as well go out there and do this thing. Because I love how Deebo's approaching the game. So if I'm a young receiver, I'm watching Deebo. I'm watching how he handles himself. I'm watching how he's fighting to make a play late into the game. So unless he's covering defense, ain't nothing else Deebo can do. So I give Deebo a round of applause for how he's operating, man. I love it. I'm glad he's over here in the burgundy and gold.
And listen, I mean, again, I have a friend who texted me, who's a 49ers fan, and was like, thanks for taking our trash. And I was like, dude, a 5th round pick? Are you kidding me? He's going to be angry. He's going to be well, listen, first off, if you knew him, you know this is who he is. Like, he just would say that stuff just to kind of twist the knife and think that and I'm like, whoa, hold on a second here. Like, this is actually great. Look, getting a player that's motivated, that feels, hey, anybody, it's human nature, right? It's not just like a pro athlete. It's not just an NFL player. It's anybody that feels like they weren't wanted where they were before. Like, come on now. How many people have been through a breakup that then go, all right, get to the gym a little more, clean up a little bit, pick yourself back up, get that kind of revenge mentality in there. That's exactly what Deebo Samuel was. Deebo Samuel got dumped. And it was a bad relationship at the end, and things were dysfunctional. They weren't working well, and nobody was really happy. So they break up. He gets dumped. And then now he comes to Washington and says, look what you're missing. Look what you don't have. Exactly. This is it right here. This is what you're missing. And I'm going to show the rest of the NFL I still got a lot left in the tank. Buying low on guys that have something to prove, that have that mindset, that is such an important asset to have within a locker room, to have around just other players, because people will feed off that. You talk so much about Deebo's leadership when he's mic'd up, and like, that's who he is. Not to mention, dude, he's tough as hell. Like, he will lower his shoulder. He will take those hits. He will set the tone in a game that will then spread to everybody else, because young guys will go, damn, Deebo's doing it. I got to do the same thing.
Yeah. Deebo, like, their names that in the league, obviously when I played, those names have now retired and moved on, but they're names in the league where, like, you walk in, like, oh my God, that's Deebo Samuel. Though that's Marcus Mariota. That's Laramie Tunsil. You start to have, they bring that expectation of just respect of who they are. And then when you see how they practice, and then you see how they approach the game, then that level of respect goes up. And I mean, I've had a lot of teammates, and some of them you're like, okay, yeah, he puts in that work. Some teammates, they don't put in as much work. Still great teammates, but you can just tell certain folks that you like to follow just on how they approach the game and how they produce and how they do how they handle their work, right? How they're going to be a pro. And I can say it was a little nervous. Didn't know what you were going to get from Deebo coming in. I was a little nervous, but man, he's exceeded all the expectations, and is going to make for a hell of a conversation in the offseason. Like, he's going to be due some money. You know what I mean? He's going to be due some money. And I could say right now, I say you got to give him the money. I think you'd want to consider keeping him around, but also when you're looking at the overall scheme of the roster, like, does it make that much sense? Right? You're going to have to cut some ties somewhere. It's going to be very interesting how this plays out. But right now, Deebo is balling. I would love to keep him in the fold for the next couple of years if it's possible. He's willing to hang out with us.
You bring up certainly something that's going to be a narrative more in the offseason, but it's still going to be thought about during the season now, is these guys that are going to be going into contract years next year. Deebo's one of them, Frankie Louvu, Laramie Tunsil. Those are just a few. Tyler Biadasz is another one too. Like, so you got these names of guys you got to think about, like, how they play now dictates what this team's mindset's going to be, because we talk about it a lot, right? How old this team is. Oldest team in the league. What are you going to do? They're going to want to get younger, but you can't just have all young guys. I was just at Wizards Media Day on Monday, and the kids are all like 24, man. Let me tell you something, by the way. Being around, like, it's one thing to be around a team that's the oldest in the league, but when you're also around a team that's the youngest in the league, and anyway, it's humbling real quick, where you look around and go, I don't understand what half these kids are talking about. But, like, you have to have that balance, right? A little bit of experience, it's there. And again, I use the Wizards as an example because I was just there, and I talked to CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton. These are NBA vets that are right there. So you still have to have that in the fold. The Commanders are going to want to get younger this offseason. They're looking now at what veterans they're going to want to keep to be around some of those younger guys. And if Deebo Samuel keeps playing like this, obviously it becomes whether the price is right or not. But if he can continue to contribute the way that he is in special teams as a running back, as a wide receiver, you can come up with maybe a 2-year deal or something along those lines, and he wants to be here. He's somebody I think that does stay around and is a part of this team moving forward. But again, you know this, right? It's always about the price. It's the money that always dictates that decision first.
Yeah, but I feel like the differentiating factor is the culture. You know what I mean? He knows AP. He's obviously had success right now with DQ. So he may buy into that culture. You know what I mean? He may buy into that and want to stay around rather than making that switch again. I know I didn't like switching teams. I hated it. I'm a guy that wants to be in that same spot so I can really get comfortable and dig deep into it. But, you know, we ain't going to talk this man's book. But, hey, you got to do what's best for him. Selfishly, we want him to be in the fold. But yeah, you have to make some decisions, and that's why we talked last week that these young guys are getting some meaningful reps, and you're getting some meaningful playing time. And whereas it's week 4, week 5, you got trade deadlines coming up. So frankly, some of the names that you see, some of the young guys that you see, may be may get moved. I don't know. They may have to move a young player or two to try to bring in some depth or some other players. So it's going to be interesting for the next couple of weeks. But everybody is either the older guys are playing for, like you said, contracts, frankly, to stay on the team for the next couple of weeks. But they're still, as a front office, got to find a way to make this team better. That's what their main goal is. And that means if it's shopping on another team's roster or if it means going down and saying, hey, let's rearrange the depth chart. The ultimate goal is to get a W. And AP, we got trust in him. You got to trust in him to do his thing, because right now the Deebo trade, that's good. It's a good trade. Tunsil trade, I think it's still a good trade. A couple penalties here and there, but I love the fact that having the left side settled down is a big thing for me.
The one thing the Commanders did was they went in and protected their franchise quarterback right away, unlike some of these other teams in the NFL that we've seen where it goes the opposite direction, and then that quarterback's out every single week. We had a lot of questions about the offense, but there's also plenty when it comes to the defense. Who really needs to step up against the Chargers to quiet the noise that's been around them defensively? We'll look at that next. It's Commanders Squad. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention on how they craft every model. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like players, right? They sweat every single detail, because when you make every moment count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So it should surprise nobody that Marshawn Lattimore, Anthony, has been in the conversation around this team to start. But it was interesting because for the first time, we really started hearing some Bobby Wagner criticisms. And a lot of that has to be on the Falcons game plan too. I mean, clearly Bijan Robinson was put in position. They were smart. I mean, they schemed that up in a way to put Bijan Robinson in spots that Bobby Wagner was going to have to cover him. And it's just not going to happen. I mean, at this point in his career, let's just look at the two, athletic, it's just, that's how it was. It was a smart game plan from the Falcons offensively to be able to utilize that. Bobby Wagner is in the conversation somewhat. Marshawn Lattimore, without question, was there. To me, the obvious choice is, right, Marshawn Lattimore, better game. Somebody goes out. If Marshawn Lattimore is the guy to go generate a turnover, just go out there, get an interception, anything. Those are the little things, I think, that will help this defense kind of erase what happened last week. Because it's one thing to have a short memory. It's one thing to have a memory like a goldfish, right? But in reality, the results on the field are going to make a huge difference. And to go out there and pick off Justin Herbert, who, by the way, has already thrown 3 picks this year. So Justin Herbert is ripe for an interception. I think this is an opportunity, though they weren't able to do that against a couple of other quarterbacks that you could have picked off too. So let's be honest here. They didn't do it against Geno, and we should have seen more against Michael Penix Jr., but again, we could look back at the Falcons offense in a few weeks and go, oh, they really changed things against Washington. It was just, we didn't see it yet. We didn't know it. But Justin Herbert, he likes to sling it. And I think this is an opportunity for this defense to really quiet some of that noise by going out there, generating some turnovers, and getting the extra possessions for the offense so that defense, older, gets a little bit of rest.
You know what happens when you're going against this Chargers offense is that outside, I like the fact that they're not the fastest receivers. They have some speed in the depth, but Quentin Johnson's not the fastest. He's a big, long guy, similar to Mike Evans. Then on the other side, you got Keenan Allen, great route runner, one of the most underrated receivers. He can get open. So his matchup will be, could it be Amos probably? And then I could see Mikey matching up with Ladd McConkey. Similar, smaller guys, very quick, shifty. And I think that matchup is better than trying to put him on a Lattimore. So, is this defense going to start flipping people around and try to match up like that? I would love to see it. I want to see Lattimore go up and play much more press man and bring the fight to these receivers and slow things down, because if the pass rush isn't going to get there, Nick, then we need to have the secondary slow some things down. And the reason why I mentioned the speed is because I think that you can play closer to people. Got to be tighter. Got to be sticky. Like in the league, being in front of somebody is open. All right. Just the DB and then the receiver, that's open in this league. And I'm fine with that because you can reach and you can make a play on the ball. But if you're not in a position to make a play on the football, then we're not going to get any turnovers. All right. So when I look at the tape, when I watch this game on Sunday, I want to see, like, if there's a completion, it was just like, damn, good catch. That's it. I can't do nothing about that. That's a good catch. But now if it's a damn, he's wide open, where the hell was so-and-so? That's the problem. So once this defense is able to recognize the concepts, trust that they're going to be able to run with these receivers. They're not going to beat y'all. They're not going to be better than you. You can stay with them. We can, understand that in your mentality. That's going to be big. And also, I've said this before, and even Marshawn said it. When they run the same play 3 weeks in a row, and then the fourth play, they have a counter for it. I bet all the money in my pocket. I don't even got my wallet on me. They're going to run it again in week 5. You're going to see it again in week 5. Fix it. All right? Fix it. That's it. And my thing is this. If you're going to deal with all that motion, play in the Arena League, what we used to do, disrupt it. Somebody got to go up there and press, jam. You can't let that stuff happen to you. So get it fixed in the back end secondary. This is a week to do it. You got a challenge with Herbert and crew, but you don't have a whole bunch of Ferraris on the field. So I think that you can have some success with it.
I mean, I don't expect you to have a wallet. You don't even have sleeves right now, so I can't expect there to be a wallet on top of that. right out of the workout, straight to the show, right?
Man, that's right. We in it, man. I was getting my pump going first. Now the endorphins are riding high, and we ready to rock now, baby.
Well, if I had known, I was at the gym. I had a black tank top on too. We could have been twinsies, but we're not twinsies. So, we'll work on that. We'll coordinate the outfits moving forward, right? Listen, I'll say this. If there's one guy that I'm not worried about moving forward that's at least going to put something out of his head, it's Bobby Wagner, right? Like, Bobby Wagner is one of those mentally strong players that's a future Hall of Famer. I mean, this is an all-pro. This is somebody that's had really a legendary career for what he's been able to do. I'm not really worried about him from a mental standpoint, but I do worry that there is more of that tape of teams trying to take advantage of certain spots where they can get the slower guys that aren't really good in coverage like a Bobby Wagner and exploit that moving forward. So that kind of goes to the pivot, to the adapting on the other side of things for the Commanders, where you're going to have to start figuring out ways like, this happens a lot in basketball, right? You got a guy that's a great scorer, but he's a terrible defensive player. You got to sometimes hide him defensively. You might have to find ways to hide certain players on this Commanders roster, because this, spoiler alert for everybody that thinks that like big changes are going to happen, unless it's snap count or depth chart or rotation. Like, there's not going to be big changes on this roster. It's the middle of the season. Darnell Savage, like, okay, great. There's a reason why these guys are available. And it doesn't mean that they can't contribute, but you're not going out there and getting some world beater unless you pull off some really big trade. And that doesn't even guarantee anything either. So it's really about figuring out the best fits and the best spots for everybody moving forward. And then understanding that when some of the stuff is on film, okay, we got to counter that. Bijan Robinson really exposed some of our linebackers in coverage.
Yeah. Look, I will also say this. Bijan Robinson is one of the, if not the best running back in the league. If he's top 2. Let's say that he's top 2, maybe top 3, depending on how you want to shake it out. But
I don't even know if I put him top 3. I think you'd be selling him short saying top 3.
And that's just because I want to throw another name in there. He might be top 2. He's no slouch, right? So I don't want to take it with a grain of salt, but it's also like, that's Bijan, right? That's Bijan. Like if Saquon Barkley went off like that, you'd be like, yeah, well, that's Saquon. The key is you don't want them to do that. Like we don't want. Like I'm not happy that he balled. I would have loved for him to have a little bit less. Like Stuart Scott always said it. Like you hope that you can't stop him. You just hope to contain him. They didn't contain him. They didn't contain him. And they got to figure out how are they going to contain future running backs, because offenses are going to scheme it up. And they're going to, next thing you know, hey, you're one-on-one with me, and it's a whole lot of green grass over here, and you can't catch me. That's how they're going to try to scheme things up. And frankly, it's going to happen again. This is not Madden. This is not Madden. You're not going to go over to the speed and then hit circle or square and then sort it out by speed and just sign the fastest linebacker. That's not how it works. And I love hearing people, hey, you just got to take him out and put somebody else in. It's like, no, that's not how it goes. That's not how it goes, unfortunately. If it was that easy, then there'd be a whole different roster every single week, right? But it's not. It comes down to knowing what you see and then being ahead of it, and you have to trust your eyes. You have to trust your eyes and just study tape and kind of cross your fingers. Because if they're faster than you, Nick, you kind of got to hope the pass rush gets there. Hope the quarterback doesn't get to it. But at least be in the position to make a tackle, give yourself a play to try to live another down. Because you're not getting any faster right now. You're not getting any faster, so let's just find a way to break. You want to get back to the bend, but don't break, okay? No explosives. Can't give up explosives.
If you were looking at this Chargers offense now when you were the Commanders' defensive coordinator, would you be more concerned in – now, I know, obviously, when I say wide receivers, there's a quarterback involved that dictates their success. But would you be concerned more about the wide receivers the Chargers are bringing to the table, or the running back position, specifically Omar and Hampton, who's really started to show now, like I said before, really starting to get comfortable in this offense?
I'm going to still lean with the wide receivers just for the simple fact I've seen a lot of explosives from Quentin Johnson. Herbert is going to throw the ball down the field to Quentin Johnson. They scheme the ball open. They throw him the rock on Diggs. I mean, he's dropped the ball in the past, but he's shown a lot of confidence. And so seeing that part of the offense open up, we all expect John Harbaugh to run, and he wants to make it physical and hard-nosed. But if you're going to spend a lot of time running inside the tackles, that plays into what Washington does well. Now, are they going to spend a lot of time on this outside zone stuff? Maybe, probably going to mix in some of it, but we know that Harbaugh is a, hard-nosed, wants to get behind the pads and, wants to run, but they're dealing with injuries across the offensive line. Joe Alt is gone. They're starting left tackle before the season. He got hurt. So they're hurting a little bit over there. So can the defense create some pressure to where the receivers aren't really getting, affecting the game that much? Hopefully so. Maybe you can get a sack or two. Dorrance Armstrong, right? Jacob Martin, is Baptiste healthy? No,
he's questionable.
He's questionable. Okay,
yeah.
He was balling a little bit last week. So somebody has to take advantage of the lesser talent that they're going against on the defensive line. So I think the receivers are going to be are the ones that can create the explosives. That's what scares me the most. I'm used to this defense bending but don't break. So give me the secondary and the receivers as the one that's got me the most concerned.
All right, we had breaking news earlier in the show. Sam Cosmi, 21-day window to start practicing with the team has been opened by the Commanders, and just now we got more really important breaking news when it comes to a very important name for the Commanders, what that is and what that means for Sunday for the Commanders. Next, it's Commanders Squad. Now, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, and when you don't have the full picture, you can't really end up leaving money on the table, and that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can access all of your accounts. You can link them in minutes. You can see the data and the visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever actually touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, Anthony, I mentioned it. I said breaking news. It wasn't just Sam Cosmi in the 21-day window that is open for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels has officially been cleared to go against the Chargers on Sunday. We started the show anticipating that being the case. We now know it is official. Change the sign behind you. Is that a chalkboard, by the way? Is that actually a chalkboard? There you go. So we got a real chalkboard. The real chalkboard now gets the change behind your head. We are going to have Jaden Daniels out there against the Chargers, which obviously is a big, big boost for this team and this offense. Marcus Mariota is one of the better backups in the NFL, but the reality is JD5 is live as you hold up the sign on camera there. He's back, and the Commanders will at least have their franchise quarterback on Sunday in LA.
And look, last week, whenever they were playing Atlanta over there at FanDuel, at the start of my show, it was 1.5 point favorite for Commanders. By the time it ended, It was a favorite for the Falcons. So right now over there at FanDuel, it's a 2.5 point favorite for the Chargers.
Yeah.
Jaden coming back. Good to pay attention to see if that line's going to change. Maybe the over-under may change. I don't know. The kid's going
As
home.
of now, the Commanders are still 2.5 point dogs. It was 2.5 earlier. They were 3 point dogs. It's down to 2.5. My guess is, and this is a lot of times how it goes, they already knew Jaden was going to be back an hour before, and that line moved a little bit. It depends on where the money was obviously going there. I know this isn't a betting show, but I would say this. There is a chance now a lot of people will jump on the Commanders at plus 2.5 as 2.5 point underdogs in this game. And I think that's smart. Like, Jaden adds a whole other dynamic. I think we know that to this team. So I think if you're in this spot, I might jump over to FanDuel and take the Commanders plus 2.5. Just saying.
And it's inside, and Matt Gay just came off of a game where he was kicking the ball really well. So, hey, let's figure that out. That's your dollars. You do what you got to do with that. But I like it. JD5 is back. That brings, all right, cool. We cool. We got him. But I still need everybody else to show the hell up. I really do.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, it's Jaden Daniels can still only do so much, right? There's still going to be things defensively that they have. But, I think the biggest hope will now be that offense is more under control. And granted, the first 2 weeks of the season, there were still some questions. There were some parts where they were out of sync. The thing is, though, Terry McLaurin, who's questionable, and again, we're only speculating at this point, but it feels less likely he's going to play than obviously it felt Jaden Daniels playing before we actually just found out 2 minutes ago, whatever it was, that he actually is going to play. The one thing is that Jaden has practiced with all these other guys that are out there on offense. So he spent a lot of time in the preseason, in training camp, in practice without Terry McLaurin involved in that offense. So he does have some chemistry. I would think this might be another Luke McCaffrey game. I think there's more of an opportunity. Luke McCaffrey, we're seeing some of it on special teams, but I think this is a chance now to get him the football a little bit more. And Jaden's kind of developed, I think, a little bit more of a comfort level with him that we've seen over time. We know that Zach Ertz is going to be his go-to guy. We know that Zach Ertz is going to get the targets. But there could be a chance here we start to see a little bit more of Luke McCaffrey involved here on top of the obvious Deebo Samuel that's going to be there with this offense.
Hey, you start finding your way into the end zone with the football, they start to find a way to put it in your hands a little bit more often. Luke McCaffrey could definitely have some action this game. They need somebody else to be a consistent threat over there opposite of Deebo. Deebo's still going to do that work underneath. He's still going to hustle and catch those quick screens, but I've been calling for it, and I still want to see a couple of downfield shots right here. And frankly, let's be real. I'm going to call a spade a spade. They're not going to think Luke McCaffrey is going to run by him. For whatever reason, and they're not going to expect it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
There's a few ways we could go with this if you want,
Take a surprise. You know what I'm saying? Because look, I remember whenever Jason Sehorn was out there and folks would be like, oh, we going over there. And he still had a good career, but we going over there. So this same vibe, they're not going to respect your speed. And Luke is fast, but they're not going to respect his speed. Make them respect the speed. Make him respect 11. I can see Luke having some action, man. Throw that sucker deep, baby. Let's do it.
And I think that's what's really important with this. Terry McLaurin in or out doesn't matter. They got to figure out the pecking order of the rest of this offense, whether it's the running back position, whether it's wide receiver. Like, it still just feels like a lot of this is figuring the thing out. We're now 4 weeks into the season. Now this is week 5 already. You've got to now have an understanding, and I get some of it's injuries and who's available, but there needs to be a little bit more besides, again, Deebo off to the side in this conversation. The rest of it is still what does the backfield look like? What does that carry split look like? And what does it look like like at wide receiver for them. And we may not know through a lot of this year. If Terry's out, it's just going to continue to be like whoever has the hot hand at that moment. But this is now going to get to the point where they got to start figuring that part out. But I think the big thing here now is that you at least have Jayden Daniels back. In worst case, you do have the legs. But I don't want to see them leaning on that too much. It makes me so damn nervous. I'm scarred. I get so nervous when he runs the football and takes a hit. I know he got bigger. I know he's got plenty, he's gained so much more muscle and he's stronger. I don't care. Like, you don't want to take away. And I think that's really one of the hard things. And we see it all around the NFL with a Josh Allen, with a Lamar Jackson. Name your quarterback that's really athletic that can run with the football. There's this extra layer of weapon that you have, but there's also an extra layer of risk that you have to kind of balance out when a quarterback can run the football that way. And look, Josh Allen's just a bigger guy. He's been in the league longer. He's more developed physically than where Jayden Daniels is, even with the improvement. Look how much Lamar Jackson has just developed physically over the years in the NFL too. You don't take it away from Jayden Daniels, but you do have to be careful that it's not a situation where he's getting put in these spots where you're putting his health at risk because he's getting popped. Some of it's decision-making, running out of bounds, sliding, making those right calls, but some of it is also the play calling that's on top of that, where you do have to try and find that balance. The one good thing is, though, he's comfortable, like you said, throwing deep, taking those deep shots. Those are important. He's also got a short memory, bad play, bad throw, whatever, smiles, moves on, has that Rex Grossman goldfish mentality, short memory. Like, those are the types of things that you kind of put together and go, okay, we've got all the pieces that are there, but I just hope that there's a level of a balance there. And he isn't like early last season where he was running the ball 16, 17 times. We don't need this too much. Please stop. Please stop. I just hope we don't see a lot of that against the Chargers on Sunday.
I would like to see him run, but with the intention of throwing the ball. That's a difference I see a lot of time with Josh Allen. He'll use 53 and a third left and right. He'll throw the ball from the sideline to get a ball. I ain't saying don't throw it back across your body, do anything dumb. But instead of trying to navigate to run to then run for 8, get out and then find yourself an open receiver. Let the scramble drill work for you. Take away some of those extra hits. They don't need to happen. So you mentioned Josh Allen, dude, 6'5", 250. He's running with his shoulder down in between 3 and 4 defenders. They don't even want to hit him. All right. That's not, you're not built the same way. You're a damn baller for sure, but you're physically not built the same way. So with your eyes downfield when you escape, now do we want to spy him or do we want to drop in coverage? Because he can pick and choose his battles of when to run. All right, I saw a little bit too early in the year. He would just try to, absorb and catch people to, constrict them in the pocket. And then he would try to, weave his way through. But teams are ready for that. So the ends are falling off. People are collapsing on him. So changing how you want to operate in the pocket is one. Keeping your eyes up to throw the ball rather than run it is 2. But then the third thing, there are open receivers before you go to that check down or before you go to the thought of saying, let's run the rock. So watching the tape and just standing in the pocket just a second longer, half a second longer, you're going to have another receiver, save your legs, don't have to run as much.
All right. We know that Jayden's back. We understand the Commanders are 2.5-point dogs going against the Chargers team that's got a pretty explosive offense. Your final feel at this point with what we know, how does the game go on Sunday?
Man, I tell you, the defense has to come up with a strong performance and set the tone on that side of things. Got to keep Justin Herbert confused and get some hits on him, right? Get some hits on him. If you can affect him that way, the ball can get a little bit errant. Love to see a turnover. You mentioned Marshawn Lattimore earlier. Would love to have him get some retribution to calm the critics down over there in D.C. On that offensive side, I'm going to go with what I said, and I want Chris Rodriguez to really get to lead the show. Go with that mindset against the Raiders, that game plan against the Raiders, but now do it with Jayden. Mix in some play action to go deep, stay on the field a little bit longer. Should feel like last year and how this offense rolls. That's what I'm looking for. Strong performance against a good team. They're 3-1. So it's a test of how solid you are and where you've come as a roster. I'm looking for them to really control the clock, control the line of scrimmage on both sides to get a W.
And this is a defense that was worn down the last couple of weeks. This is a chance now for the offense with Jayden Daniels back to make that difference, to stay on the field longer, keep Justin Herbert and that Chargers offense off of the field. If the Commanders can do that, they can win this game. I do think it comes down to a field goal. Maybe it's another opportunity for Matt Gay to say, see, I belong here. Maybe it's the game-winning field goal for him. Defense needs to at least generate a turnover or two. There's an opportunity for redemption for a lot of guys that are out there that did not have good weeks over the last couple of weeks, specifically last week and defensively. I think in the end in this game, it comes down to a very close game where the offense for the Commanders is going to dictate a lot. I think the Commanders cover in this. I think the Chargers might end up winning this. I feel more comfortable leaning Chargers, but Commanders keeping this thing within a field goal. But we still have a couple of questions in terms of who's available and who's actually going to be out there on Sunday for the Commanders. But the most important thing, as we sit here and wrap this up, Jaden Daniels back for the Commanders against the Chargers. Will be back post-game after that. David might hit traffic then. I don't know. Poor guy's been sitting it the entire time and couldn't even do this. Glad you could jump on, Anthony. The Wi-Fi stayed together. He said you had an outage in the air. Listen, we count on technology, man. But when it lets us down, boy, it lets us down really, really quick. We're back on Sunday after Commanders Chargers right here on Commander Squad.